born in chaos, and they bring death and destruction to our Earth.
We looked across the street from us, and there was total devastation. It looked like a bomb had been dropped.
They rip a path through the heavens and tear apart the fabric of our lives.
The neighbors all gathered at my house because ours was the only house left.
They are nature at its most terrifying. They are tornadoes.
Beyond what is known lies an unexplored world of shadows and phantoms. A land that knows no limits of time or space. From the dawn of discovery to the nightfall of catastrophe. Journey to a universe of the unexplained, the unforeseen, the unbelievable. A place beyond reality where no question will go unanswered. A place where myth and legend are law, superstition a science.
It's time for our journey to begin. You howl in fury and have no regard for the works of man. Tornadoes. Knowledge surrounds these library walls, and with these instruments, that knowledge can be ours. Man has dedicated much time to exploiting and confining nature. But nature can fight back fiercely, and there are few forces in nature as savage as a tornado. Is man helpless in the face of such wind-driven rage? We need to take a closer look at one of those terrible winds.
It was a foregone conclusion that we were going to die. It was just a matter of waiting for the exact moment.
I can remember holding my family together in the bathroom and praying to be saved.
As I was moving through the house, I could already hear windows breaking. I started talking to God about whether or not I was going to make it through this experience.
There's nothing on earth to compare to the sight and sound of this storm creature as it pounces upon its helpless victims.
People will tell you that tornadoes sound like a train, and they do. It sounds like it's going right through your home.
The sounds were so intense, the glass breaking, the 2x4s just snapping, and you realize that your house is coming apart, and you're just absolutely helpless.
You could hear things breaking, cracking, windows breaking, things hitting the house. And we weren't sure when we opened the door to the bathroom what we would find.
These people have lived through a terror that descended from the heavens. They have experienced a tornado, an ordeal that has blown lives apart for centuries. Indians of the Great American Plains feared and respected tornadoes. They believed that they could drive them from their villages with this. At the first sign of a tornado, they would take an axe, swing it over their heads, and then bury it by the handle with the blade facing the menace. According to legend, the storm would split in two, leaving the Indians in peace. In the intervening centuries, our scientific knowledge has grown, but our ability to fight back has remained the same.
Tornadoes sometimes touch down for just a matter of seconds. And the tornado may destroy one or two houses and then lift right up, leaving the house right next to it completely undamaged.
The word tornado comes from the Latin word torne, meaning turn. And the erratic paths they take are only one of the more terrifying things about them. This tornado appeared in Minnesota in the north-central United States. And amazingly enough, a helicopter was in the vicinity with a very brave pilot and cameraman on board. And they captured one of these turning winds in this spectacular footage. These winds can exceed 200 miles an hour. And they lay waste to everything in their path. Fortunately, in this case, the tornado appeared over a forest, and the only damage was to some power lines that were flattened like matchsticks. The mindless malevolence of tornadoes makes them difficult to predict. We do know that the United States suffers more damage than any other nation, with an average 850 tornadoes a year. And that is in a good year. Tornado appearances are known as outbreaks, and most take place between February and May. The frightening thing is that the death toll was as great in the last great outbreak of 1974 as it was in 1884. Modern science seems helpless in the face of something so capricious, something that seems to appear and disappear almost at will.
On the average, something around 100 people a year are killed by tornadoes. Tornadoes come in many shapes and sizes, and we can reproduce all those in our laboratory model. And that's brings up one of the advantages of a laboratory model, in that one can reproduce time and again the same airflow.
At Purdue University in the United States, Dr. John Snow recreates tornadoes in this special chamber, paying close attention to their destructiveness.
Most people who are hurt by tornadoes are hurt indirectly through flying debris.
In a similar study conducted in the tornado-prone state of Texas, researchers have attempted to duplicate the effects of these winds on a simple piece of wood blown into the slab of thick concrete. A chilling example of what a tornado can do took place in April of 1974. In a two-day period, 148 of these terrible winds descended on the east-central United States. In the space of 16 hours, they killed 315 people and injured another 6,000.
In a 36-hour period, there were some 140 tornadoes produced. This was a tornado outbreak, and that particular one was the strongest outbreak we know of in recorded history. This is an example of one of those violent types of tornadoes. It's very large, very powerful, probably having wind speeds approaching 300 miles an hour. As a result, it just demolishes everything in its path.
It's almost as if man is being punished for presuming that he can control nature. Now that we've seen what these brutal storms can do, is there a way to fight them? To push these terrible winds from the sky? What is a tornado? Very simply, it's a storm gone bad. Very bad. These killer winds behave as if possessed by a malignant intelligence, and like many killers, they are unpredictable. Tornadoes are always born in the turmoil of a thunderstorm. Warm, moist air pressing against dry air creates an atmospheric witch's brew that soon forms clouds. And then, as it cools, rain. Thunderstorms are quite common, but in rare cases, the elements collide and a tornado begins to emerge. Occasionally, if the storm keeps growing, the winds at the top of the storm begin to rotate. And if that rotation continues and tightens, that spinning vortex may become something deadly, something called a tornado. Can we predict the arrival of one of these rogue storms? Some meteorologists believe it may be impossible.
It's extremely difficult. In fact, I would say it's nearly impossible to predict exactly where and when a severe thunderstorm, which might produce a tornado, would tend to form. So my feeling is we may be able to give 20 or 30 minutes notice for the very large tornadoes, but to be able to say that 3 hours from now a tornado was going to form over a certain city is absolutely impossible. And I would say that we probably might not be able to do that for perhaps 50 or even 100 years.
On May 8th, 1986, the small community of Edmond, Oklahoma huddled indoors. The air was electric. Something evil was on the loose. And as the day met the evening, the time of the winds began.
On that day, we were getting signs of some impending heavy thunderstorms across Oklahoma. We were watching for indications from the National Weather Service. We were also listening to the folks down at Severe Storms Lab in Norman. And we did have an indication of some very strong thunderstorms building later in the day.
As night began to fall, so too did the winds, forming into a huge black funnel.
Those funnels, very shortly thereafter, one of them at least touched down and became the Edmond tornado.
That night, few slept as the winds ravaged the terrified community.
It looked like a war zone, absolutely. There was debris 4 and 5 feet thick.
We had both cars destroyed. Our Blazer, which was just a couple days old, was thrown upside down into our front bedroom.
We looked across the street from us and there was total devastation. It looked like a bomb had been dropped.
Edmond was completely devastated, but miraculously, no one was killed or even injured.
I feel very fortunate we survived. In looking at the neighborhood afterwards, it's a miracle that people didn't die.
The people that were affected, completely devastated, that were right in the path of the tornado, all were astounded that no one was injured, that we actually came out of this alive, and just happier people for it.
The people of Edmond survived, but nobody can say for certain when another tornado will return. Can we predict the unpredictable, stop the unstoppable? These questions are of paramount importance to millions of people who live in the area known as Tornado Alley, a wide strip of land that spans the central plains of the United States. Right in the heart of this area stands a laboratory that has joined the battle against these hellish winds. While most people do everything possible to stay out of the way of a tornado, scientists of this laboratory are doing just the opposite.
We have a lot of sensors here at the National Severe Storms Laboratory that we use to make measurements in storms. Very important to our research are the radars. And right now, the kind of radar that we use are Doppler radars. They're newer, somewhat different than radar we had in the past. And the way that they are different is that they add a new piece of information. That information, properly processed, gives you the motion of those raindrops up inside the storm. Knowing the air motion inside the storm, then we can learn how that storm evolves, what makes it tick, how does the air get flowing in the direction that it flows. And very important, perhaps the most important piece of information, is when does it start spinning?
Any warning given before a tornado strikes can save hundreds of lives, and that warning time may increase. Through the use of sophisticated atmospheric analysis and radar mapping, we may gain precious minutes, time also gained through the efforts of dedicated researchers who defy the winds to do their worst. Today, there are men and women who don't cower before the deadly wind. They seek it out. Why? To learn its secrets. Secrets they can share with us. When tornadoes strike, most rational people head for their basement. But not these men and women. No, they head right into the winds, risking their lives in the pursuit of knowledge.
Storm chasers are a particular breed of person. It's actually almost inbred in you. There's something that tells you want to go out and chase severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. It sounds kind of off the wall, but there's a particular breed of us who love to do it, and we kind of derive a particular thrill of going out and seeing what is such a fleeting occurrence on the earth.
Okay, deploy. Let's go. I got the thing. Deploy. Yeah!
Many of these storm chasers travel with highly sophisticated equipment designed to measure the force of the storm, equipment that forms a virtual laboratory on wheels.
The mobile laboratory is used to move out, intercept severe and potentially dangerous storms, track with those storms, make measurements on those storms for future scientific analysis. But in the process, we would radio back-end information that might affect the public safety. I find that to be out in the open fields and in the presence of a very large storm is a rather awe-inspiring incident. You really do understand that you are an insignificant factor in front of a very large machine in the atmosphere.
Tornado trackers are not the only people who face these winds. The rest of the residents of Tornado Alley must also watch and wait. But there are warning signs that anyone can look for. Obviously, violent storms can herald something unpleasant, the arrival of a tornado.
The clouds were building, and the neighbors were outside looking. We were all looking at the storm, and we knew there was something to be concerned about then.
I started weather watching and went out on the front porch and was watching the clouds roll in, and the more they roll in, the darker and deeper they got.
It's referred to as a wall cloud. It's real black on the bottom, and it's almost as if someone took a ruler and drew a line in the sky.
It was pouring down rain like crazy. I mean, you wouldn't believe the way it was raining. And then we got a pea-sized hail that come shortly after that, like it was pouring out of a bucket.
I watched the tornado form. Little wisp clouds happened to start rotating, and then all of a sudden it just fell out of the sky.
We saw it coming, and we were just at God's mercy as to whether or not it was going to hit, whether or not it was going to destroy, and whether or not it was going to kill.
It is usually futile to run from a tornado, but over the years, crucial information has been gathered that has saved thousands of lives.
The first thing that people should consider in preparing for a tornado is that there's actually very little you can do to prevent property damage in an existing building. So what your really goal is to prevent injury and prevent death.
If a tornado warning is issued, people should immediately seek shelter in a basement.
We try to tell them to put as many walls between themselves and the tornado as they can. If a tornado does get close enough that it's going to start doing some damage, it's going to start tearing down the outside walls first.
Don't stay in the car, because a tornado will just tumble it over and over on the ground, and many people are killed in just that way.
Tornadoes can destroy human lives, and they can shatter the living as well, taking away their homes, their possessions, blowing their very lives to the brink of ruin. But out of this destruction can come hope, hope that is said to spring eternal, a celebration of the human spirit that in its own way is as mysterious and unpredictable as the tornado itself. Though tornadoes take on many shapes and sizes, the human heart remains large.
People who didn't know each other became very close after the tornado because we shared something that was terrifying.
This was Edmond, Oklahoma, the day after. Already the town was being rebuilt, and already people were finding the strength to carry on.
It became kind of a joke. I mean, everybody started just laughing about it, and with no injuries, it was easy to just be thankful that you were still alive and that no one was injured, and that we were able just to start over.
Today, Edmond is whole again, its inhabitants as secure as they can be, because on the horizon, a dark cloud remains. Tornadoes are a reminder of how fragile the works of man are. The more we know about them, the less in control of them we seem. It's as if nature wanted to teach us humility and leave us trembling in the face of power beyond our comprehension. Tornadoes. Winds that can tear the world apart.
Secrets and Mysteries presents information based in part on theories and opinions, some of which are controversial. The producer's purpose is not to validate any side of an issue, but through the use of actualities and dramatic recreation, relate a possible answer, but not the only answer, to this material.
According to a recent poll taken in the United States, half of its population believed that the universe is inhabited by other intelligent life. The rest of the world cannot be far behind. The 1950s witnessed a sharp increase in the number of sightings all around the world, and with it, more and more evidence that something unusual was happening in our skies. Even the United States government took notice, beginning an official Air Force investigation called Project Blue Book. Their files soon overflowed with more than 12,000 sightings. These water beasts may well be the most ancient surviving inhabitants of our planet.
Did I see the monster? I don't know, but I do believe that, you know, I obviously saw some things, and nobody's been able to tell me what I saw. So I think I must have seen the monster.
Stonehenge. That place has become a metaphor for the magnificent, the unfathomable, and the mysterious.
I have the feeling that the people who built it had something very strongly in mind, maybe more than the astronomy and the worship. And I wish to goodness I knew what it was, and maybe I never will.
German scientist Werner von Braun is considered to be the architect of America's space program. Von Braun and his team took the technology from the German V2 rocket, which had been created for destruction, and applied it to the development of the chariots that would take man to new worlds.
There's never been an astronaut who got on a spacecraft, whether it was Mercury, Apollo, or even Shuttle, who didn't fully understand the risk involved and who wasn't willing to take them.
The only voyage of the Titanic was surrounded by bad luck that defies belief. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was as if she was cursed. A curse, some say, began when she was launched.
He went up and he came back. He said, it's nothing much. They only struck an iceberg.
This magnificent object is a symbol of genius, of ambition, and of dedication, for it is believed to have taken 30 years to construct. And that construction is not the least of its miracles.
It stands as, one of the most prominent monuments for its size and complexity, and also its lack of information about it. To be able to plan and economically accomplish such a large feat for the pharaoh is extraordinary.
This is the mark of Sasquatch, taken from a set of tracks that covered a 5-mile stretch of dense forest. The depth of each print indicates that whatever made it weighed 800 pounds. 800 pounds.
And there's other, more dramatic evidence. On a hot afternoon in October, Roger Patterson and a friend were riding through some woods in northern California. Suddenly their horses shied. They looked ahead and saw something squatting by the creek. As the creature ambled away, Patterson took this film that has been analyzed, debated, and contested ever since.